I work as a freelance photographer, which means I spend most of my life driving from one forgotten town to another, chasing abandoned churches, broken-down mansions, old cemeteries, and places people usually try to avoid after dark. But when I am not working, I have another habit. I collect old things, not expensive things, not museum pieces. I mean strange things. Rusty pocket watches, cracked music boxes, war medals with no names, yellowed photographs of families who probably died before my grandparents were born. And above all else, I collect dolls. Porcelain dolls, wooden dolls, handmade dolls, carnival dolls, dolls from estate sales, dolls from attics, dolls with missing eyes, dolls with sewn mouths. I never believed they were haunted. To me, a doll was just a thing. Wood, cloth, paint. Glass, that was what I believed until I found Eleanor. It happened in a small town in West Virginia. I had been hired to photograph an abandoned coal baron's estate for a historical restoration blog. The place was huge, half collapsed, swallowed by ivy and mountain fog. After finishing the shoot, I was driving back toward the highway when I noticed a tiny antique shop sitting beside a gas station that looked like it had not been opened since the 1980s. The sign above the door read, "Funna Hollow Creek Relics." The building leaned slightly to one side. The windows were dusty. The paint was peeling, but something about it pulled me in. Inside, the air smelled like old wood, damp paper, and dust. The shop was packed from floor to ceiling with furniture, broken lamps, brass candlesticks, cracked mirrors, old toys, and boxes, filled with things nobody wanted anymore. Behind the counter sat an elderly man with pale blue eyes and thick glasses. He looked at me for a moment, then gave me a small, tired smile. "Looking for anything special?" he asked. "Just browsing," I said. I walked slowly through the narrow aisles, careful not to knock anything over. That was when I saw her. She was sitting on a low shelf beneath a torn velvet cloth. A small wooden doll. At first, she looked ordinary. Her dress was faded red, the kind of red that might once have been bright but had now turned dark and dusty with age. Her hair was made of tangled black thread. One side of her painted face had a thin scratch running from the cheek to the chin. But her eyes were different. They were deep black, glossy, and still. Not painted eyes, not ordinary glass eyes. They looked alive. I stood there staring at her longer than I should have. It felt as if she was not sitting on the shelf. It felt as if she was waiting. I picked her up. The old man behind the counter stopped moving. I turned to him and said, "How much for this doll?" His smile disappeared for a few seconds. He said nothing. Then he spoke quietly. "You don't want that one." I laughed a little. "Why not?" The old man looked toward the doll, then quickly looked away. "That thing has been in this shop for nearly 50 years, he said. "People buy it, then they bring it back." "Why?" He leaned forward. "Because after they take it home, they stop sleeping." I thought he was joking, but his face did not change. He continued, "They say they feel watched. They say when they close their eyes, they see her face. Some of them swear she moves around the room at night." I smiled and shook my head. "I collect dolls," I said. "I've heard every haunted doll story there is." The old man looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Her name is Eleanor." I looked back down at the doll. "Eleanor," I repeated. The name felt cold in my mouth. The old man said, "I am telling you now, don't take her." But that warning only made me want her more. That is the problem with collectors. We do not walk away from strange things. I paid him $20. He did not even count the money. He only placed the doll in an old paper bag, pushed it toward me, and said, "Whatever happens after this is not my responsibility." I should have left her there. I know that now, but that night, I drove home with Eleanor sitting in the passenger seat. Every few miles, I glanced at the bag. And every time, I felt like something inside it was looking back at me. When I got home, I placed Eleanor in the glass display cabinet in my living room with the rest of my dolls. She looked small among them. But somehow, she became the only one I could see. Her black eyes caught the reflection of the lamp and seemed to shine from inside the cabinet. I stared at her for a while, then forced myself to turn away. I ate dinner, answered a few emails, edited some photos. Then, before going to bed, I looked once more toward the cabinet. That was when I noticed something strange. Eleanor was no longer sitting straight. Her head had turned slightly, just enough that her face seemed aimed directly at the hallway leading to my bedroom. I told myself I must have placed her that way. I told myself I was tired from the drive. I told myself a lot of things, but that night I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Eleanor's face, those black eyes, that red dress, that scratch on her cheek. I had the feeling someone was walking through my apartment, not loud footsteps. Soft ones, tiny ones. At around 3 in the morning, I finally got out of bed and turned on the light. Then I walked into the living room. The glass cabinet was closed. All the dolls were where I had left them, except Eleanor. She was not on the shelf anymore. She was standing directly behind the glass door. Her small wooden hands were pressed against it. Her face was turned toward me. I could not move. For several seconds, I just stood there staring. Then I opened the cabinet, grabbed her, and shoved her back onto the shelf. My hands were shaking. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been stress. Maybe I had moved her and forgotten. Maybe the shelf was uneven. Maybe a truck had passed outside and shaken the cabinet. But the next few nights were worse. I stopped sleeping. Whenever I closed my eyes, I heard soft scratching. Sometimes from the walls, sometimes from the hallway, sometimes from inside the glass cabinet. I began waking up in chairs on the floor, at my desk, never remembering when I had drifted off. My eyes turned dark underneath. My skin looked gray. I missed deadlines. I stopped answering calls. The worst part was the feeling that Eleanor was always watching. Even when I left the apartment, I felt her eyes on the back of my neck. After 4 nights, my best friend Mark came over. The moment he saw me, he said, "Man, you look like hell." I told him everything, the antique shop, the warning, the doll moving, the sleepless nights. Mark listened, then sighed. "Ethan," he said, "you need sleep. That's all, you're freaking yourself out." "It's the doll," I said. He looked toward the cabinet. "That thing." He walked over and stared at Eleanor through the glass. "She's creepy, sure, but she's a piece of wood." "Look at her eyes," I said. Mark leaned closer. For a few seconds he stared. Then he laughed. "2 black glass beads, that's all." I told him to stay the night. He agreed, mostly because he thought I was losing my mind. We ordered pizza, watched television, tried to act normal. "Before bed," I said, "just keep an eye on the cabinet." Mark laughed again. But he did not laugh for long. At about 2 in the morning, I woke to the sound of him screaming. I ran into the living room. Mark was sitting upright on the couch, his face white, his mouth open, one hand pointing toward the cabinet. Eleanor was not on her shelf. She was standing in the center of the cabinet. Her face was pressed toward the glass. Mark whispered. I saw her move. I froze. He turned to me, trembling. I saw her climb down from the shelf. Neither of us slept after that. At sunrise, we made our decision. We were taking Eleanor back to the shop. The drive to West Virginia felt longer than before. Mark sat beside me, silent, staring out the window. Eleanor was wrapped in a towel inside a duffel bag on the back seat. Every few minutes, I looked into the rearview mirror. The bag did not move, but I felt watched. Somewhere along the mountain road, the zipper on the duffel bag opened by itself. Just an inch. Mark saw too. He reached back with shaking hands and pulled it shut. Neither of us said a word. When we reached Hollow Creek Relics, the shop was still closed. A rusted lock hung on the door. We waited at a diner across the street until 10 o'clock. At exactly 10, the old man appeared with a ring of keys in his hand. When he saw us, he did not look surprised. He only nodded, as if he had been expecting us. "You came back," he said. I placed the duffel bag on the counter. "We don't want it," I said. "Take the money, keep the money, just take her back." The old man slowly unzipped the bag. Eleanor's black eyes stared up from inside. He immediately looked away. "I warned you," he said. Mark slammed his hand on the counter. "What is that thing?" The old man sat down. For a moment, the whole shop was quiet except for the ticking of an old wall clock. Then he told us the truth. Many years ago, before the town nearly died, there had been a wealthy mining family named the Whitakers. They owned half the valley, including a large house deep in the woods. The Whitakers had one daughter. Her name was Eleanor. She was 7 years old. She was quiet, sickly, and lonely. Her father adored her and gave her everything she wanted. One winter, he hired a craftsman from Pennsylvania to make a doll in Eleanor's likeness. Samey dark hair, samey red dress, samey pale face, samey black eyes. The child loved the doll more than anything. She carried it everywhere. She ate with it, slept with it, talked to it. Then one night, Eleanor died from a fever. Her father lost his mind with grief. He refused to bury her favorite doll. Some people said he refused to bury Eleanor properly too. Instead, he sealed the doll inside a hidden nursery room in the old Whitaker house, along with the child's bed, her clothes, and everything she had loved. He believed that if the room remained untouched, his daughter would come back. But after that, strange things began happening. Servants heard a little girl crying inside the walls. Family members stopped sleeping. People saw small footprints in dust. Within a few years, the Whitaker family fell apart. Death, madness, financial ruin. The house was abandoned. Decades later, the antique shop owner's father found the hidden nursery while searching the ruins for valuables. He took the doll and the curse followed him home. "My father tried to burn it," the old man said. "The fire went out. He tried to throw it in the river. It came back on our porch the next morning. He tried to bury it. Our dog dug it up and died beside the hole." I swallowed hard. "So how do we get rid of it?" I asked. The old man looked at the doll. "You have to return it to the place it was taken from." Mark whispered, "The Whitaker house." The old man nodded. "There is a locked room on the second floor. A nursery, that is where she belongs," I said. "Why didn't you do it?" The old man's face hardened. "Because my father tried." He paused. He never came back the same. He gave us directions to the house and one final warning. "Do it before sunset, and whatever you hear inside that house, do not answer it. Do not take anything. Do not look under the bed, and if you hear a little girl ask you to stay," he leaned closer, "run." By the time we reached the old Whitaker property, it was nearly 4 in the afternoon. The house stood at the end of a dirt road hidden between dead trees and mountain fog. It was larger than I expected, 3 stories tall with broken windows like empty eye sockets and a front porch sagging under its own weight. The front gate had collapsed years ago. One stone pillar still stood, covered in moss. The other lay broken in the weeds. I took the duffel bag from the back seat. It felt heavier than before. Mark looked at me. "Let's do this fast." We entered through the front door, which hung open on one rusted hinge. Inside, the air was freezing, not cold, freezing. Our breath came out in white clouds. The house smelled of rot, mold, and something sweet underneath, like flowers left too long in a closed room. We crossed the foyer. The floorboards groaned beneath our feet. A staircase rose in front of us, curving into darkness. Somewhere upstairs, something made a soft tapping sound. Tap, tap. Like fingernails on wood, Mark whispered, "Tell me that's a branch." We climbed the stairs. Halfway up, I heard a small voice behind me. "Daddy?" I stopped. Mark grabbed my arm. "Don't answer," he whispered. We kept going. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched left and right. The wallpaper was peeling. Old portraits hung crooked on the walls. Every painted face seemed to be watching us. The hidden nursery was supposed to be behind the last door on the left. We found it, a narrow white door, smaller than the others. The handle was ice cold. I pushed it open. The nursery was still there. A child's bed stood against one wall. A small wooden chest sat near the window. Faded toys were scattered across the floor. A cracked mirror hung above a little vanity. And in the center of the room, someone had drawn a circle on the floor in white chalk. The chalk looked fresh. I looked at Mark. He looked at me. Neither of us wanted to speak. I opened the duffel bag and took out Eleanor. The moment my fingers touched her, pain shot up my arm. Her wooden body was cold, not like wood, like skin that had been dead for hours. I placed her in the center of the chalk circle. For 1 second, the house went completely silent. No wind, no floorboards, no tapping, nothing. Then the nursery door slammed shut behind us. Mark ran to it and pulled. It would not open. I joined him, throwing my shoulder against it. The door did not move. Behind us, a child began crying. The sound came from the wooden chest near the window. Soft at first, then louder. Then the crying turned into giggling, slow, breathy giggling. We turned around. Eleanor was standing, not lying in the circle, standing. Her head tilted to one side. Her black eyes reflected the dying sunlight from the window. Mark whispered, "No." The doll took one tiny step, then another. The sound of her wooden feet scraping across the floor made my stomach twist, scratch, scratch. The temperature dropped so fast my fingers went numb. The walls began to creak. The mirror above the vanity cracked from one side to the other. A little girl's voice whispered from everywhere at once. "You brought her back." Eleanor moved closer. Mark grabbed a broken chair and held it out like a weapon. "What do we do?" he shouted. I looked around the room in panic. The old man had said to return the doll to the place it was taken from, not the room. The place, then I saw the wooden chest. "The chest," I said. "She came from the chest." Mark stared at me. "You don't know that. It's the only thing in here old enough." Eleanor was only a few feet away now. Her painted smile looked wider. I ran toward the chest. As soon as I touched the lid, something inside knocked back. 3 hard knocks. Bang, bang, Mark screamed. "Ethan, hurry." I forced the latch open. The lid rose with a long wooden groan. Inside were rotten blankets, a child's pillow, and a small red ribbon. The smell that came out was unbearable, like damp earth and dead flowers. I turned around. Eleanor was at my feet. Her small wooden hand touched my shoe. The moment she touched me, my vision went black around the edges. I heard a little girl whisper directly into my ear, "Stay with me." I screamed and grabbed the doll. Her body shook violently in my hands. Mark rushed forward and helped me. Together, we threw Eleanor into the chest. For a second, she sat upright inside it. Her black eyes locked onto mine. Then her mouth opened. Not painted, opened. A scream ripped through the room. It was not a child's scream. It was something older, something buried, something furious. Mark and I slammed the lid shut. The chest began shaking. Something inside scratched against the wood. We did not wait. We ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs, through the front door, across the dead yard, behind us. From somewhere inside the house, a little girl screamed my name. Not once. Again and again. "Ethan, Ethan, Ethan." We reached the car and sped away without looking back. For 3 days after that, I slept almost non-stop. No dreams, no whispers, no scratching. For the first time in a week, my apartment felt quiet. Mark refused to talk about what happened. I tried to return to my normal life. I stopped collecting dolls. I stopped visiting antique shops. I told myself Eleanor was back where she belonged. Then, 2 weeks later, I received a package. No return address, no postage stamp, just my name written on the front in crooked black letters. Inside was a strip of faded red cloth and a photograph. It showed my living room, my glass display cabinet, all my old dolls sitting in their places, except now, in the very center of the cabinet, there was an empty space, and written on the back of the photograph were 3 words: "I can't sleep, asterisk, asterisk."